Hello and welcome to this week's Lives with Eating Mindset. This week we're looking at food and mood, starting today with a look at sleep. And we all know that if we haven't had enough sleep, we feel grumpy, snappy, hangry, hungry that we're actually feeling angry. I apologise for the appearance of Harry the Hornet there. I'm afraid my son wanted him to make an appearance in the video, so hopefully that isn't too distracting for you, and hopefully Harry will just go away and chill out somewhere now. That would be really good. And we also know that if you're not sleeping well, it can affect your appetite and make you overeat, and that's because it leads to some kind of a hormonal imbalance. So not sleeping well reduces the levels of a hormone we have called leptin, and it also increases levels of a hormone called ghrelin. And both of those will affect our ability to recognize when we're full, and also our appetite. So you have a much bigger appetite than you naturally would, biologically speaking. So obviously that's really not a good thing, and that's why if you're not sleeping very well, you can end up eating more, and you're not actually hungry, but you just think you are, and it's because of that hormonal imbalance. So that's just an important thing to say right up front. But there's three key things in the diet that will impact the quality of your sleep and the length of your sleep, and those are caffeine, probably no surprise there, but I'll give you a little bit more information about that in a moment, alcohol, and what you eat just before bed. So looking at caffeine first, I think most people often think of caffeine in relation to trying not to drink caffeine-containing drinks or in the evening before bed or close to bedtime. But actually, the caffeine that you drink throughout the day can have an impact on the quality of your sleep. So it can impact the onset of sleep, making it more difficult to actually get to sleep. It can increase the amount of light sleep you get that is not very refreshing, and decrease the amount of deep sleep you get, which is the refreshing sleep. And so that's why you might end up waking up and just not feeling very refreshed. As I said, these effects depend not only on the amount of caffeine we consume around bedtime, but also on the amount of caffeine consumed over the whole day. So my usual recommendation to people is not to have more than a couple of mugs or large glasses of strong caffeine containing drinks across the course of the day, and to try to keep all caffeine containing drinks to the morning. Obviously coffee and energy drinks are the highest sources, but you're also going to get caffeine from things like strong tea. If you drink a lot of cola, there's fair bit of caffeine in that as well. A quick thing about energy drinks, is so important that your children are not drinking energy drinks. They can be extremely dangerous for children, causing palpitations and all sorts of things like that. So it really is best that they just absolutely avoid them completely. And I say that because you would never believe that from the marketing, because the marketing looks as though they're safe for children. They're really marketed at children, certainly at young people, and I think that's absolutely tragic, and I'm hoping that that's going to be stamped down on a lot more strongly by the government very soon. And I think there are plans to do that, but obviously we've all got a different focus at the moment. So we do all respond differently to caffeine, so it may be that you get away with having a little bit more. So if you know that's you, well then that's fine. But generally that recommendation of no more than a couple of mugs or glasses, and to keep them early on in the day, in the morning, before midday. So that's caffeine. The next thing that affects our sleep is alcohol. Now, this is an interesting one, really, because we often think of alcohol as something that makes us feel sleepy, but actually a small amount of alcohol is actually quite stimulating. You know, it makes you more chatty, more perky, and that effect kicks in about an hour after you've had a drink. But larger amounts of alcohol do make you feel sleepy, and that sleepy effect can last for several hours. But the really important thing to remember is that there's a rebound stimulant effect about 2 to maybe 3 hours after your blood alcohol levels have fallen back down close to zero. So it means that if we've been drinking in the evening, we might experience that stimulant effect in the middle of the night and just wake up. So if you've ever had that experience before, that you've kind of had a few drinks, felt really sleepy, fallen asleep, and then woken up in the middle of the night and wondered why. Often I think we think it's just that we've woken up because we're feeling thirsty, but actually we might be waking up because we've had that stimulant effect because of the rebound that kicks in 2 to 3 hours after blood alcohol levels drop down to 0. So the really important thing there is, obviously, if you want to get a good night's sleep, to avoid having large amounts of alcohol. That's really important. You know, even drinking alcohol in the middle of the day can lead to that stimulant effect at the wrong time. So it's just something to think about if you've been struggling to sleep. I'm not saying don't drink alcohol at all, but just something to bear in mind. And then we come to what we eat just before we go to bed. So again, this varies a lot from person to person. But if you personally find that fatty or spicy foods give you heartburn, maybe a bit of reflux, then obviously these foods are best avoided in the evening, because you're going to feel uncomfortable. If you feel uncomfortable, it's going to be very, very hard to get that right state of relaxation to fall asleep. And your body doesn't want to be actively digesting large amounts of food while you're trying to get to sleep. So it's important that bedtime snacks and that your evening meal is quite light, or that your evening meal is early. So don't try to have an evening meal at 9 o'clock and then expect to be able to fall asleep. Now, a lot of people have asked me about tryptophan. So tryptophan is an amino acid. It promotes sleep. So amino acids are basically the building blocks of protein. So, you know, could protein foods be useful in helping us to sleep? So we know that tryptophan is found in small amounts in pretty much all protein foods, really. So people often talk about things like turkey as being particularly beneficial in terms of being a great source of tryptophan, but really eggs, soybeans, any type of poultry, meat, fish, cheese, all of those things are quite reasonable sources of tryptophan. And the reason why it helps us get to sleep is because it's a precursor of the sleep-inducing chemicals serotonin and melatonin. Now, for tryptophan to be able to have that sedative effect that I'm talking about, it does need to enter the brain and cross the blood-brain barrier. And when it's trying to cross the blood-brain barrier, it's competing with a whole bunch of other amino acids that don't have that same sedative effect. And so what you need to do is to reduce the amount of those other amino acids floating about at the blood-brain barrier and increase the amount of tryptophan. And a possible way to do that might be to have carbohydrate-containing foods like bread, potatoes, cereal, rice, pasta, those kind of things, because they stimulate the release of insulin, and the insulin will clear the other amino acids from the bloodstream, and this may facilitate the entry of tryptophan into the brain across the blood-brain barrier. So the basic tip in terms of what to eat is to have a small protein and carbohydrate-containing snack. No, thank you very much, Harry. I think we've had enough of you now. Before bed, so something like, say, a poached egg on a thin piece of toast or something like that might be the best option. Now, the science behind this, it's more that we know that tryptophan has this effect, but we don't necessarily know that that particular bedtime snack is going to produce a really strong, statistically significant effect on your ability to get to sleep. But it's one of those things that isn't going to do you any harm, and if you're struggling to sleep, it's something that's certainly worth a try. So that's just something for you to think about if you think it might help you. So there are my tips for sleep, and hopefully you'll get a really good night's sleep tonight. And then tomorrow we'll be talking about brain fog. And so I'll see you then, hopefully minus Harry the Hornet. Bye.
That was more fun.